This time now in the States has been the longest our daughters have been in the U.S. It's really their first time it's been their first time of knowing grandparents and aunts and uncles. And it was the first time it dawned on me, sacrifices that you make when you say yes. And I mentioned earlier, you're saying yes to a sacrifice that you don't understand yet. Every aspect of your life, every little sacrifice you're going to need to make along the way. And we make it willingly, like it is with joy. But it doesn't make it hurt any less.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, Greg, as we transition to our next question, we've done the preparation work. We've laid down the foundation for itinerating, developing accountability, being part of an organization, and now you're on the mission field. Hopefully you guys soon. So imagine you're in that place where it's like, okay, next part of the journey. I want to ask you about the practicality of it all, because there's a lot of hurdles to jump over getting to this point. But once you finally arrived at the point that you feel God has prepared you for, what does that look like in terms of lack of comfort? You don't have your own house. Maybe you're staying in someone else's. Maybe you're renting something. So you don't have the comforts of home to where you can truly, this is mine and I do what I want. And then how do you deal with being in a foreign country with language barrier, illness, or give us some of the practical aspects of it.
So a good kind of way to see it is, we will be celebrating 16 years of marriage next month. And the longest we've lived at one address is the one we currently have on the field, and it's been about 3 years.
Wow.
And so, you constantly feel like you're living in a different place. So for someone, there's an aspect where you have to recognize that trying to live the American dream is a thing that you push aside. I mean, regardless of it's not compatible with the gospel anyway, but you realize that from here on out, there's going to be a lot of constant adjustment. And we jokingly say it's like you always have to be flexible, because there's always going to be shifts that are being made, and it's a moving target. This time now in the States has been the longest our daughters have been in the U.S. It's really their first time it's been their first time of knowing grandparents and aunts and uncles. And it was the first time it dawned on me, sacrifices that you make when you say yes. And I mentioned earlier, you're saying yes to a sacrifice that you don't understand yet. Every aspect of your life, every little sacrifice you're going to need to make along the way. And we make it willingly, like it is with joy. But it doesn't make it hurt any less. Does that make sense?
There is sacrifice in everything.
And with our daughters with our children being in the States, I was thinking, last year I thought, as a child, when I was a child, I looked forward to going to grandparents' house, right? My dad is from Chicago, so every Christmas, every Easter, 4th of July, and at least one other time a year, we would travel up to Chicago to see my grandparents. And it was always, Grandma Lewen always had cookies and snacks and home-baked goods galore. I looked forward with anticipation to visit Grandma and Grandpa. And even my grandparents on my mother's side, I looked forward with anticipation of spending time with them. And I saw them several times a year. With my mom's side, even more, because we lived in the same area. And our daughters, our children, are not going to have that. There is that cost that has to be paid. Now, we have also seen God's faithfulness in keeping His promise. When Jesus said, there's no one who's left mother, father, brother, and sister that won't receive now in this life. Mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters. And we've seen God add people to our family that aren't blood related, but love us and love our children in the same way an aunt and uncle or grandparent would that is blood related. But there's that lack of comfort of from here on out. it's not a 9 to 5 job. You know, it is you are living in a new country, which means you need to learn a new way to live. You know, a new way to eat, a new way to speak, sometimes a new way to dress, depending on where you live. And because everybody there lives that way.
Yeah.
And if I want to be able to have an opportunity to gain influence into their lives as much as humanly possible, I need to live like they live.
Right.
And so, yeah, it creates some discomfort for sure.
And even going down to the core of who you are as a man, a husband, a father, it can affect your family life, can it? How do you navigate having to give yourself to constant service? Because being a lead pastor on top of that, you're evangelizing, counseling, you're working with non-believers, you're working with a community that may be fighting with one another. How do you deal with those spiritual responsibilities whilst also raising your children and being a man of the home?
Yeah, admittedly, I'd say it is a constant battle. You know, a lot of times, you know, man, and even, you know, kind of in our field of ministry, it kind of draws certain people to have a certain kind of personality, like the kind of go get it kind of people.
Yeah, active,
you
vibrant.
know, and it makes sense, right? I mean, you can't really start a work in another country without having some kind of go get it attitude.
People skills.
And so, or drive, or whatever you'd want to call it. And so it is a constant balancing act. I'm not sure I hit it nearly as well as I should, but God's goodness towards us is that my wife is able to keep me balanced. You know, she's the one that would be like, hey, you know, I know those things are important, but you got to be able to step away too. And so, you know, she's always kind of the one there, kind of like, hey, don't forget. Because I'm definitely fully capable of getting so focused, you know, and what it is that's before me that you forget there's other obligations and responsibilities you have as well. I have the benefit of also having a wife who is a partner with me in ministry. That's not always the case, you know, but you know, for us, because we're both in ministry, it's not just me going out and doing my thing. It's a family call for us. Now, during the week, you know, roles are divided or responsibilities are divided, and so I tend to be out of the home more, visiting with people and doing more ministerial work in that aspect. But because you're both in ministry, you kind of understand what comes along with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I understand what comes along with it, and so I get it. You know, it's going to need to be a late night tonight because this, and this. All right, you know, it's fine. But it's always with trade-offs. All right, I'm spending extra time today, so that on, you know, Monday is our off day. Monday we're going to go and do this as a family. And you know, phone's going to stay in the pocket. You know, unless somebody's dying. They can be. I can respond to them tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that we'll end on this portion of the video. Your off time or your travel time. How do you manage that? You're talking about the American dream, about white picket fence, dog, 2.5 kids, and an expensive car or whatever. And sacrificing that, how do you travel? How do you wheel around 3 kids? Do you have a car?
Yeah.
Do you do public transport?
And so we've done all the above. We have cards for the public bus system that's there. That's it's mostly reliable. The times are not super reliable, but they run constantly. We've taken taxis. You know, we walk a lot. You find yourself because we live in an urban setting, and so you find yourself even when we use our car, but even when you do use your car, you're probably still parking 3 or 4 blocks away, and so you're walking. And then a lot of times you think, we're probably not going to find parking. Let's just walk. With our organization. We have a fund that supplies the missionaries with vehicles.
Okay.
That's raised by the youth ministries of the Assemblies of God. And so each church has a youth ministry that raises money that purchases vehicles for missionaries. And so our vehicle was purchased by Speed the Light, which is the missions wing of the youth ministries of the Assemblies of God. And so we have a vehicle. It's a 7-seater.
Oh, wow.
7-seater. It has the very back
try.
row. Yeah, the very back row. You either get trunk space or seat space. You don't get both.
Right.
And so now, going back as a family of 5, one of those seats will need to be up.
Right.
And so we've used, all forms to be able to travel. Off time and such. This is an area where I have struggled because most of the time it's been, well, let's just go to the park or let's just go and do this. And now going back, people ask, there's 7 islands, so how many have you seen? The island we're on and one more. And they're like, that's it? You've been there 12 years or 11 years.
Yeah.
And so I was telling someone the other day, I said, this time around when we have off days, we're going to hop on a plane, we're going to take a boat, whatever it takes. We're going to see some more places and appreciate the area that God allows us to be able to serve Him in. I'm not a beach person at all. I don't enjoy the sun. I don't enjoy the sand. I don't enjoy the heat. But we'll find something.
Yeah.
We'll find something. In times past, and we'll do it again. We get a pass to, and even here in the States we do it as well, a pass to like a local aquarium or zoo, an annual pass, because our kids, they love animals. Our daughters could spend all day in the aquarium if we would let them.
Yeah.
And in the city where we are, it's small, but it is a really nice aquarium. It's a really good experience, and we'd probably go once a week.
That's cool. It can be sometimes difficult. I know for me, I'm sensitive. I'm always thinking about what are other people thinking about me. So how do you balance off time where you don't feel like, well, I'm really meant to be a missionary here, but it'd be nice to, like you said, go see something other than a mile around to where I live.
Well, and so a big portion of it is social media. What you do and do not post on social media, and it is unfortunate. There are a significant number of people or pastors that would be critical. I would say though that number's reducing.
Okay.
As pastors are starting to become more aware. Just the practical side. I mean, even the pastor here in the States has off time. Should have off time.
Yeah.
If you want to stay healthy in life, you need to have off time. And here you live in Florida. Florida, I love fishing. Florida is like the fishing capital of the world. You have wonderful saltwater fishing, wonderful freshwater fishing. It is a wonderful place to live, and everybody needs off time. In the beginning, I really struggled with it because I had heard critical comments before.
Yeah.
Of someone saying, "Well, I'm not paying for you guys to be on vacation," and I think, well, I understand what you're saying. Our life is on a vacation, but we do take vacations, just like you do.
Yeah.
You work as a pastor at a church, and you have paid vacation every year, and we do as well. And I would say, by and large, that pastors are becoming, and people are becoming much more understanding of that.
Yeah.
Especially in our context. We are in Europe. The islands are part of Spain, and so for a long time was always kind of a stigma that missionaries going to Europe are going to kind of have the easy life, and that's changing for the good.
Good.
People are starting to understand it as a legitimate mission field, to see beyond just the architecture and the art it's like, it is a modern place, but don't let the modernists fool you. Go to downtown Tampa and tell me that there's not people in desperate need of the gospel message in downtown Tampa. And Tampa has beautiful places like Channelside Drive that have wonderful touristic places. Ybor City has its heart that has its draw to the creative, to the painter, that aspect of culture, and yet it's in desperate need of the gospel. Why? Because there's lost people there. The islands themselves, for me, are the same way. It's not a place I would have chosen to go, honestly. But it's a place that God's asked us to be. And with joy in my heart, I will say yes. And so, yeah, we take time. We've seen, there's a museum on the north side of our island that is built over top of an excavated settlement that they discovered some years ago by accident from the original Aboriginal people that were there pre-Spanish time. And it's really cool. I'm a history nerd, and we went there as a family, and our daughters thought it was the coolest thing because they've dug down into it and they've encased it in glass, but you can still see some of these paintings, hand paintings that are on the wall that are depictions that date back hundreds and hundreds of years. And to me, it was super cool, but it happened on a day we took off. And to me, it enriches our knowledge of the people that we're serving. This is ancestor. These are ancestors of the people that live here now. This is the stories that they are told as children about who they are and their formation as a society and their culture. This is part of it. And the better we understand this, the better we understand them, and the more capable we become of truly being communicators of the gospel with people that live here. And I will argue that's a hill I will die on. If you want to serve a people, you need to know their history. Period.